Hello, everyone, to week 3 of Orange Weekly After Dark, brought to you by Centennial State Insurance Agency, your go-to for all your insurance needs. Be sure to give them a call. They would greatly appreciate it, as would we. They're a great family-based type of insurance company. So if you're tired of the big guns and the companies that put you on wait for 5 hours, give them a call. My name is Jason Andino, and I'm your host tonight. And it sure feels like Groundhog's Day all over again. Another tough week for the Broncos, no matter how you draw it up, no matter what you want to talk about. It's going to be fortunately a short week in terms of playing wise, but it's going to be a long few days before we play the Jets. As usual, guys, feel free to drop your comments and discussion points you want to talk about in that comment section. Any questions you want to go over. And while you're at it, feel free to give this video a share, bring in some more Broncos fans. We got to stick together in these trying times. So again, feel free to start dropping any comments or anything you want to talk about. Again, tough week for the Broncos. This is one of the bigger losses they've had in terms of the score spread. Definitely did not come down to the final 30 seconds as we're used to seeing the Broncos lose. This game was decided pretty early on, actually, as the Broncos offense petered out quite early on. Didn't get much going until they finally got a touchdown, in the second half. But at that point, too little, too late. Biggest news, injury-wise, 2 more Broncos added to the IR. Casey is down for the year, torn biceps, obviously not good. And can't play with that anytime soon. So he's on the IR. He's already been ruled out for the entire year. They also put Calitro on the IR with a hamstring injury. They have not said how long he will be out for, but minimum 3 weeks being on the IR. So that brings the Broncos total money in the IR up to a grand total of $58.8 million, a league leading amount in the IR. So we'll get back to that in a little bit. Already, guys, see some comments rolling in about some quarterbacks. So let's just start rolling through these. Bortles or Ripien? This is a great question. I think everybody knows that pretty much Driscoll's out of the picture at this point. What he showed was less to be desired. I was definitely hoping with the full week with the number one squad that the offense would get rolling with Driscoll. Unfortunately, that did not happen, and pretty brutal outing by him. So yeah, as Red Cloud is saying, Bortles or Ripien are the 2 options, and I might be in the minority here. I don't know, but I say give it to Ripien. I think Bortles is still too new to this organization. He hasn't and will not have enough reps done by the time Thursday's game takes place. I think it might be a different discussion if we played on Sunday, but with a shortened week, Bortles really hasn't had any time to get in the playbook to start, getting the timing down with this team or understanding what's going on. And so, you know what? I think Ripien's been loyal to this team. I think he's deserved a shot. And so I think with what he showed late in the game against the Buccaneers, why not give him a shot? That being said, I think, the ball has to be given to our running back, Melvin Gordon, a lot more than it was this week, but we'll get more into that here in a little bit. Interesting a question. Why not try Cap? And you know what? That's not an illegitimate question. I think for me personally, my biggest question mark is the fact that he hasn't played a game in 4 years, and it's multifactorial too. I think with we're expecting Drew Lock to come back in a matter of weeks, right? This isn't a season-long thing we are going to be going through. Lock is still our number one guy as soon as he's healthy, which could be as soon as hopefully the week after the Jets, if not maybe the week after is what we're hoping for. So again, you bring in Cap, you bring in a guy who hasn't played in 4 years, and the same issues we're running into with Bortles, where, it takes a while to get into a playbook, to understand the scheme, the style, the fit, to memorize those plays, to get those reps in, with the appropriate guys, get that timing down. So I think that's just too much to wait on. I think if, say, the Broncos were to sign Cap, we're talking minimum 2 weeks before you can really put him out there. At that point, we might have Drew Lock back. If not by then very soon afterwards. So I think the timeline on that is just a little too far past. And again, even without that, again, I have a lot of question marks. Anyone who doesn't play in the league for 4 years, especially a position as important as quarterback, it's tough to make that adjustment. So, and here's the question already coming through across all social media. Are we tanking for Trevor Lawrence? I'm sure this will come up in our other shows throughout this week. Personally, I say absolutely not. No matter how you want to dice this, Drew Lock is our guy. At no point has Drew Lock lost the confidence in the fan base. He had a great end of last year. Went 4-1, had great numbers. He had a good outing, I thought, in week 1. A very tough fought game against a very great defense of the Titans. And then he got hurt against the Steelers. I don't think Drew Lock has done anything to make us think that he's not our go-to guy for the foreseeable future. I think he's got great poise. He's got great leadership. He's got great accountability. I think the parts in his game has already improved, his footwork, his ability to read the plays, and he makes things happen. And, so I think tanking for Trevor Lawrence at this point is it's a dangerous game for the Broncos to play. Trevor Lawrence is a great, phenomenal quarterback. I don't think anyone's going to question that. But to throw away an entire football season after a few weeks, especially when our number one problem, in my opinion, are the injuries, right? If our quarterback play was what was causing these issues right now, and our number one quarterback, then we might be having that discussion of, do we need to try to draft another quarterback? But again, guys, they show that stupid graphic, I feel like every week, of the quarterback carousel that the Broncos have had since Peyton Manning. And we need to find some consistency, both in our quarterback play and in our coaching. And to keep turning it over year and year, or every 2 years, has no benefit for the organization. It does a lot of harm long term when you're trying to rebuild. And the Broncos, I think they've done a good job the past couple seasons trying to put these pieces in place to really start developing a team. And I think they're finally there. It's just an unfortunate year where now we're dealing with injuries. So I don't think tanking for Trevor Lawrence is the answer. I think that it shows no faith in Drew Lock, when I think he is showing us more than enough for us to have faith in him, at least to give him a full season under his belt to see what he can do. Especially with top-notch other, offensive components that we are currently missing. Once Drew Lock comes back, keep in mind, we're going to be without Courtland Sutton. Hopefully Philip Lindsay's back by then, and I think that'll help our backfield out a bit, help Melvin Gordon carry the workload. But again, it's a very young offense, extremely young. I think the average age is 25 years old. I don't think at this moment trying to go after yet another quarterback is going to solve any of our issues. But yeah, Billy Cox, thanks for joining tonight. I agree. I don't know what to think about this year either. It's tough. I think a lot of us, and reasonably so, came into the season, expecting the Broncos to be a playoff caliber team. Maybe not necessarily Super Bowl contenders quite yet, but certainly enough to at least get into a wild card game. Unfortunately, injuries have been just wreaking havoc on us. I feel like every year one or two teams gets hit the hardest. And maybe it's because I'm a little bit biased with the Broncos, but I can't think of a team in recent memory that's been hit this hard by injuries. Not just, again, I talked a bit about it last week, but it's not just the sheer number of injuries we're dealing with, but it's also who's getting injured. We are missing a lot of our top guys, Courtland Sutton, Von Miller, now Casey, AJ Bouye, Philip Lindsay, Drew Lock, Draymond Jones, Mark Barron, the list goes on. And, DeMarcus Walker, it's a massive injury season for the Broncos. And again, we have almost 60 million. That's 60 million tied up in our injured reserve now. That's money that should be on our active roster. That would be benefiting us greatly right now, right? But when you have your top players on injured reserve, and again, you got to take Drew Lock out of that. Drew Lock isn't on injured reserve, so you got to add his, if you want to add his salary onto it. I can't remember off the top of my head what his contract is, but we have over $60 million of tied up in players that are not currently playing, which is tough, Speaking more on injuries, the Broncos did not practice today, which I think is very smart given the current injury situation and with the short turnaround. And so the injury report that came out today is not an official one in terms of who actually did or did not practice. However, it was an estimation of who would have participated. Atachu, quadricep injury, did not practice. Calitro, again, already talked about him. He was signed to the IR. Bryce Callahan with a wrist injury did not practice. Drill Casey, we talked about IR. Shelby Harris did not practice due to neck and quadricep injuries. Kareem Jackson with a back injury did not practice. Drew Lock, we know about. Elijah Wilkinson with a knee did not practice. Devontae Harris has a hamstring injury, would have been limited if they practiced. Philip Lindsay would have been limited with his foot injury. And Trey Marshall, wrist injury, would have been limited. Obviously, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, no pun intended, but our injury situation is absolutely horrible. And to go with Ryan's comment here, it very well could be a long winter, everyone. Again, it's one thing when your team's just kind of struggling and you're not quite getting those W's. It's another when the biggest factor is something that's completely out of your control and isn't going to be fixed anytime soon, right? Obviously, with these long-term injuries, those are season long. We're not going to have Von Miller likely for the season. If he does come back, it's going to be towards the very tail end of the season. We will not have Cortland Sutton for the season. We won't have Casey for the season. So it's going to be tough for sure. So I'll try to stop talking about injuries at the moment. We might cycle back around to it. Feel free to, again, drop your comments on what you think of the injuries. Curious to hear if you think that, does this mean we should have a 4-game preseason every year? There's been a lot of talk about shortening the preseason. I think this is a huge argument of why you can't shorten the preseason, or at least can't have one at all. It's certainly things to talk about. And unfortunately, the Broncos are taking just a massive hit on this season. So changing topics a little bit here. We'll try to get to more of your comments, guys. Keep posting them. I will try my best to get to them tonight. Again, going back to the quarterback dilemma we're facing right now. Why not? Impossible to judge without any kind of protection. And I think that is something we are finding out as well, is our offensive line has been absolutely atrocious the past couple of weeks. Bowles has been better. I think Bowles is currently our top graded offensive lineman. He did have another holding call, which I thought was a weak call. I thought I disagreed with the call. I'll say that. But I think it's 12 sacks in the last 2 weeks our offensive line has given up. I don't really care who you put back there. If your offensive line is nothing more than practice cones for the other team to just run past and put pressure on your quarterback and sack him 12 times in 2 weeks, you're going to have a hard time offensively getting anything going. And it shows in the run game too, just because for the run plays, you don't see a sack. Those short distances that Melvin Gordon was being held to was because the protection was absolutely awful. Our offensive line needs to figure out how to be way better than they are. Because if there's any hope at all this season for, a glimmer of chance to make a wild card spot in these playoffs with the expanded playoff now, our offensive line needs to figure out what the heck they're doing, because what they're doing right now, it isn't football. I'll tell you that. It's, again, it's cheap practice for the other team right now. getting those sacks in. So we got to figure that out for sure. A lot of comments on the question on the quarterback. Again, I touched on that earlier. I'm sure it'll be more heavily addressed throughout the week, guys. So for sure, give me a lot of content coming at you guys. We've got podcasts coming out tomorrow. Is our main show, Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS. Again, that's our Tuesday flagship show. Always a lot of fun. So be sure to tune in. That's 7 p.m. Mountain Time. But on top of that, we've got podcasts coming out to you guys, pregame, postgame. We've got pregame shows, live shows. We've got a halftime show that's live. We've got, all kinds of material coming at you guys. So for sure, follow us on our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher as well. Again, lots of content coming to you guys, and especially with these live shows, we really do it for you guys. It's a ton of fun for us, but it's fun because you guys are interactive so much. And you're putting your comments in there right now too. I promise I'll try to get to them even more as we go along here. Please keep throwing those comments out there. Please keep checking our material out. It's a lot of fun. You guys make it so much fun. So we truly appreciate that. So again, our main show Tuesday nights, that is tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Join us, and I'm sure we will talk more about the current third string quarterback controversy that the Broncos have going on. I touched on this a little bit, but I want to touch on again. I think Bowles has been outstanding as far as our offensive line can go. Again, I think our offensive line as a whole has been terrible, but Bowles has been our top graded offensive lineman. I think he's done a great job over the offseason, better preparing himself, not just, studying tape, figuring out what he was doing wrong, but the mental game as well. I know he took time. He said he found a sports psychologist and really took a lot of time working through that mental issue, that mental block he was going through. And I think it showed. Again, he's had two holding calls in 3 games, not ideal. I disagree with the call that was called last game. It is what it is. I think in general, he's given the best protection on our offensive line. So needs to be fixed. As far as Schumer goes, I don't have an issue with his playing calling so far. I think he's been dealt a raw situation as well, right? New offense, you had all these plans going into the season, and all of a sudden your first string quarterback, your wide receiver 1, your running back 1A are all out of the lineup. You're having to make some pretty quick adjustments. How do you take a quarterback like Driscoll and run the system that you've trained for in practice all through the short training camp? You had no preseason to really work out those kinks in the play calling. So the one thing I do think we need to adjust while we're waiting for Locke to come back is we need to figure out a run game a bit better. Obviously it'll help if Philip Lindsay comes back soon. I wouldn't expect Lindsay to be ready for this Thursday. Could be wrong. I think there's a better chance of him being back the following week. But either way, I think we need to give Melvin Gordon this week way more carries than we gave him this past week. Our running game has to be our workhorse right now. Especially if we're going with our third string quarterback. Your passing game's not going to necessarily be where you want it to be. So this week I expect a lot of very conservative play calling, a lot of run calls, a lot of screen passes, a lot of short passes, a very game management type of game from our quarterback, whoever it turns out to be, whether it's Bortles or Ripien. We'll have to wait to see who they announce. But it's I don't have an issue with this playing calling, I guess. Jason, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I see you keep posting this. I addressed it a little bit at the very beginning of the show. I'm not sure if you were able to check that out or not. I'll give you a very quick rundown. But as Billy has said, my number one issue with that is he hasn't played in 4 years. It's a giant question mark. So I don't think signing him will fix any problems that we currently have. Not only that, but again, with the issue of timing, right? He would have to, if we were to sign him, he would have to pass through all the COVID protocols, which takes a few days. It would take him 1 to 2 weeks, best case scenario, for him to get into our offensive playbook, learn the plays, get with our team, get first team reps, get the timing down, get the structure down, get the system down before we put him in a game. And at that point, we're talking, week 5, 6, maybe even 7 of the season, where we're expecting Drew Lock to be back. So I don't think from a standpoint of what you determine the best strategy to be, I don't think it doesn't make sense for the Broncos at this point in time, right? Again, it might be different if Drew Lock was out for the season. It might be different if this was week 1 or 2, but we're moving to week 4, and I don't think Cap gives us any benefit being on the roster for 1 or 2 weeks when he hasn't played a game in 4 years. So he's as much of a question mark as anyone else. Let's see, Red Cloud. Drew in a full season is water and oil. No, I appreciate you being devil's advocate. Again, I think that's what makes these shows so great, is it's not just everyone being talked to the entire time, but you guys can post your own opinions as well. I don't think it is water and oil. I think, last year we tried the Flacco experiment and it went terrible. And yes, he got injured last year. But I think regardless, we were going to go with Flacco for a good chunk, arguably too long, regardless of how he did. And this year, yeah, it's an unfortunate injury, but I throw that back on the offensive lineman. He was the Steelers. I can't remember who was that sacked him that injured him, but basically went completely unprotected and was able to get a huge hit in from behind on Locke, and that's what injured him. So I think it's too early to say he's too injury prone. I get what you're saying. He has yet to be healthy for a full season. At the same time, this is his second year as a pro. So I would like to see how he does with the better offensive line, for sure. But we'll see. If we get another season or 2 down the road and he's injured both of those years, now maybe we're talking trade for a quarterback, or I don't want to say it, but looking at the draft again. But I still think it's just a bit too soon to be drafting another quarterback. So we'll see what happens. An interesting question, Jose. He asked, do you think that no fans in the stadium affect the outcome of the games in some way? I absolutely do. Credit to the Broncos PR for putting South Park in the stands this week. That was a great showing. And I think it gave pretty much everyone league-wide a good laugh. Unfortunately, again, I think if we put Kenny at quarterback, our offensive line would have killed him. With the poor performance all around, I think that we might need to ban South Park, as they brought quite a bit of bad luck to the team this past week. But no, I do think that there's a huge impact with no fans, especially at, for the Broncos, where their fan base is a huge part of what makes them successful, right? It's one of the best fan bases in the NFL. The fact that we are 0-3 again to start this year, and we're having this much of interaction on this page, I think shows just how incredible our fan base is. And so, yeah, I absolutely think that it plays a huge role. They're playing in front of basically an empty stadium. I think they allowed 5,700 fans this past week, but that doesn't generate the noise that the teams are used to having at their benefit, especially when on defense, to make things harder on the visiting team's offense, on their play calling, all of that. So it definitely gives an advantage to the visiting teams across the league. They're not dealing with that crowd noise that they're normally having to deal with. So I absolutely think that has an effect on it. How much of an effect is, I guess, dependent on people's individuals' thoughts. Yeah, it's going to be a tough year as far as that goes, especially as some teams are allowing more fans into their stadiums than other teams. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out through the year, especially as we move into these, fall, winter months where it's cold and flu season. And, we might see more upticks in COVID. I don't know. But that could definitely have an effect on how many fans are allowed into a stadium. So let's see. I'm trying to get to more of your comments. Thanks for joining us, guys. And again, we've got plenty of time. We don't have plenty of time. It's late. clearly, but we have plenty of shows and content coming at you this year. So, Red Cloud, getting back to you. We should be able to beat the Jets. We'll see. Yeah, the Jets are truly awful, and they don't have a ton of injuries. They also have arguably I think the worst coach in the NFL. There's a bit of bad blood, obviously, if we go back to 2017, I believe it was, where we played the Jets and Adam Gase drew up that onside kick when they were up 33-9. So I think there's still some bad blood there. Adam Gase did that against the Broncos in LA, his former employer, obviously. So I think a lot of it's, as far as karma goes, finally coming around. I don't think he has much longer as a Jets coach. And I would love for the Broncos to be that final nail in his coffin. I think, again, with all our injuries, I think if we're able to establish a great run game early, that opens up some play action. It opens up some better play calling as far as the pass game goes. So I think if we can get the run game going and our defense has a better outing, which, mind you, the Jets have the 32nd ranked offense going into this week. I think we still have a good chance at beating the Jets this week. And I would love nothing more for after the game for Adam Gase to officially get fired from the Jets after he pulled that crap a couple of years ago, drawing up an onside kick when you're up 33-9. So we'll see what happens. Austin, thanks for joining us tonight. Do we sign anybody to fill holes since we're screwed at this point? A lovely way of putting it. It's a great question. Again, we have made some signings. I honestly can't even keep up with the names anymore. We did sign somebody at the Saints practice squad this past week, and I thought he looked good at linebacker for us. I wouldn't be surprised if we try to make a couple more signings, again, with 2 more players being put on IR. And a lot of holes to be filled for sure this year. And so, we're kind of screwed on the injury sense, but at the same time, we get a lot of looks at some guys that, might have been passed up otherwise. And I do think that one of Elway's strong points is he's able to find kind of those diamonds in the rough. I can't remember how many years, but I think it's something, I think almost every year except for one in the past 5-6 years, he has found an undrafted college free agent that has made our opening day roster. So I think he has an eye for talent that other people kind of pass up on. So don't be surprised if we sign a few more people. Again, the short week makes it hard, going from a Sunday game to a Thursday game, with your Monday being your off day, that leaves Tuesday and Wednesday for practices. And so if you're signing somebody, just logistically, especially with this COVID thing, it makes it very tough. So I wouldn't be surprised if we sign somebody to kind of fill those holes. I would be surprised if we sign somebody before Thursday's game, but more so after that game when we have that then extended week to try to bring them up to speed. So Red Cloud, again, as with every year, I feel we should be 2-0, not 0-3. And you know what? That's not a bad statement. Again, if you take out the disappointing loss against the Titans, we were very close to coming back against the Steelers. We could be 2-1. And the thing to think about too, we are 0-3. And yes, we have a massive hill to climb at this point, but the Titans were 2-4 to start the season last year. And they became, a playoff team. They were in the AFC Championship game. Season's not done yet. I'm not one for throwing the season away after 3 weeks. Again, it's going to be tough. We have a lot of injuries to deal with. But you know what? That'll make it even sweeter if we do make the playoffs, right? Knowing how much of an uphill battle that this team has right now. So we'll see what happens. But it's going to be a long road for sure. It is frustrating being 0-3 when you could be 2-1. Jason, getting back to you. Thanks for all your comments. You say, line calls out, line calls. It's on the QB to call out linebacker blitz and safety and corner blitz. Good point. It's a different league now. Got to be able to make plays out of none, especially when you're a division with Mahomes. You're right. And those are some outstanding points. The offensive line needs to be able to pick up those at the line. The quarterback needs to be able to address, pick apart where those blitzes are coming from, where we need the extra protection. I think that's something that we saw a ton of when Manning was at, the helm, where he could pick apart a defense like no other and could address where those blitzes were coming from. Clearly not in the skill set of Driscoll. And so you're right. Part of it's on Driscoll for not picking up those blitzes. I still think a huge part of it is the offensive line, just not protecting our quarterbacks well enough. But I do think the little bit we saw from Ripien, he was able to make some adjustments at the line. That's another reason why I expect to see him this week with a shortened week, is he was already showed he was able to make better adjustments at the line than Driscoll was. So we'll see. But Jason, again, thanks for joining us. Your last comment, hopefully you tune in later to either finish this show or tune into our other shows as well. But we need line and a fullback then to actually pick up the blocks. And until then, we get blitz every game. And I don't disagree with that either. I think, a team where the Bucs saw that we allowed 6 sacks against the Steelers, so they're going to throw everything at us. And now we're in a position where the Jets are going to see, hey, they gave up 12 sacks in 2 weeks. They're going to throw everything at us as well. So you're right. We definitely need to make some adjustments on that. We'll see what happens. Going to keep getting through some comments before we close out the show tonight. Again, thanks for posting all your comments, guys. Please continue to keep them coming. Jose, appreciate about that. I thought it was a good one too. But here we go. And this is the other main comment being thrown around is Fangio needs to go. He looks lost out there. We have some inner debates amongst the Orange Weekly staff, and we have one in particular who is very adamant that we should get rid of Fangio as well. I am on the opposite side. I think Fangio stays. I think he is, again, been dealt a very raw hand this year. I think last year we saw very steady and continuous improvements throughout the year. We finished 4-1. And now he's trying to coach a team that is injured, battered, working a potential third string quarterback, maybe even a quarterback that wasn't even signed by a team until last week. So I think he's doing a good job. I really do. I think the fact that, the players are taking ownership, I think there's enough to show that they're still bought into this system and to Fangio. If you look at, situations across the league where, coaches are fired 1 to 2 seasons, when you enter this rebuild period that the Broncos are well underway and hopefully on the upswing on with a healthy team, you can't just fire coach after coach after coach. You get into an issue where there's no consistency, right? Different systems coming in constantly. Players are trying to readjust and learn different things. But the other thing is then you start getting to a situation where very qualified coaches want nothing to do with that organization because they don't want to deal with, they come in their first year as a coach and after a couple losses, everyone's calling for their job. Coaches want some consistency too. They don't want this 1-year project to see if they can provide a miracle. And if not, they're going to be run out of town as well. I think, again, I keep going back to the 49ers as an example, because I think right now, honestly, it's hopefully a bit of what will be deja vu for us, where, they hired Kyle Shanahan. The first season didn't go great. They were 6-10. The second year, they were riddled with injuries, much like we are. They won 4 games that year, right? Under Kyle Shanahan's second year, they went 4-12. Everyone was calling for his head. Everyone calling for his job. The 49ers stuck with Shanahan, and what happened that third year? They made it to the Super Bowl, right? Again, I'm not saying the Broncos are a shoo-in for the Super Bowl next year, but I think we're a far cry from the Jets, right? Where, they've held on to Gase for multiple seasons. They've gotten worse every year. We don't want to turn to a Browns either, where they're, you look at the Browns, they got a lot of talent on that team right now, but they're still struggling because they can't find any consistency in any scheme because they are already on their 4th coach in the past 4 years. So I think we need to give Fangio some more time. I get it's frustrating. I get it requires sometimes an insane amount of patience. But it's, I think we stick with him. I think he's shown that um, he's a great coach. Honestly, I think the fact that the team is still bought in says a lot about him, who he is as a person and coach. And I think, you take away this past game, basically every game we're competitive right now. He's putting the team in positions of success, and honestly, if you look at some of the tape from yesterday, he called a good game. He the system and strategies were solid. It's just the execution was terrible. How many wide open passes did Driscoll just completely screw up? No defense. I think we could have been a bit more aggressive. I think the issue was getting in too many third and shorts where Tom Brady's going to pick those apart, right? Tom Brady's still too much of a versatile quarterback to be able to read the play, read the defense, and pick those third and short situations up. So defensively, I think could have been improved. But, in general, I think he's still our go-to coach as well. So I think again, I know it's tough, especially when Broncos country is so used to winning. We've been in such a big lull for such a long time now, since Peyton Manning, that we just want that quick miracle fix. Unfortunately, that really happens in the NFL these days. So I think in the meantime, we got to stick with Fangio. We have to stick with Locke. I'm hoping it's a quick turnaround next year, much like the 49ers had going into their third year with Kyle Shanahan with a healthy team. Is what I'm hoping for. We will find out. Let's see. I think Simmons is over being a Bronco. Always fault for sure. Pay the man, Jose. Good comment. That'll be interesting, especially as we move more into the season here. See what his performance does. I think he's been solid. He gave a couple plays this past week, but not a huge deal. I think he's still one of the best defenders in the entire game right now. So, you're right. It'll be interesting to see once you franchise tag a player, there's always seems to be some bad blood there across the league, right? So hopefully they can work something out. But at this point, you're right. It might get to the point where Simmons just wants out. However, Elway does have the continual option to keep franchise tagging him until a long-term deal is struck. So we'll see what happens. That'll be an interesting talking point as the season progresses. So for sure, continue to bring that up on our shows. And we'll try to gather some more information on all of that as well. All right, guys, I want to try to start wrapping it up here a little bit. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your comments. I'll try to get to just a couple more here as we wrap up, but already starting to lose my voice a little bit. So bear with me here as I get to a few more comments. Felix, this morning on KKFR, they were calling for Elway's head. KKFN. They were calling for Elway's head. So that'll be another talking point, right? At this point, again, with how frustrated the fan base is, how frustrated everybody is, very quick it turns into everybody's fault all the time, right? And just blow up the entire system, start over fresh. I don't think we're there. Again, I think if we have a healthy team, we're having very different conversations right now, right? I think we are at least 2-1, if not 3-0 with a healthy roster, right? So we'll see. Again, we can definitely talk more about that as the week goes on, as the season goes on. But I think, we get 1 or 2 wins. If we get 2 wins heading into the bye week, we're 2-3. You got to take it one game at a time, right? I don't think Elway, his contract is starting to come up to a close. I can't remember if he's got 2 more seasons, 1 more season after this one. But we'll see. I think he's made some adjustments on this roster to start heading us in the right direction. Unfortunately, this just hasn't been a season where we see it because of circumstances that are far beyond anyone's control, right? If you're Elway, you don't plan 5 of your 6 top paid players to be on IR with season-ending injuries, right? So we'll see what happens, but I'm sure that is going to be a continued heated discussion point for quite some time, right? And here's another solid point, Red Cloud. Everyone blames Johnny, but Ellis is the culprit. And I think this is a conversation point that gets largely overlooked amongst the fan base in all of our frustrations is how many organizations don't have a true owner right now? One, and that's the Broncos, right? And until there's a true owner that has where everybody has accountability, I don't think there's going to be any quick fixes, right? You can fire Elway, you can fire Fangio, you can fire the entire staff, start over completely new. But if you don't have an owner, you're going to start running into some of these same problems going on, right? So that is something I think the Broncos organization needs to figure out very soon here, is what the heck is going on with the ownership standpoint. So, yeah, that's a great point, Red Cloud. We'll see what happens. But it's the ownership problem for me is the number one issue for the Broncos. And I think Elway's doing as good of a job as he can. I think Fangio is doing as good of a job as he can with the current circumstances in play. Again, no training camp to work some kinks out with our new offensive coordinator. It's been a very unfortunate season in a lot of ways for the Broncos. Some again that everyone's dealing with, whether it's no training camp or a shortened training camp, no preseason. Some dealing with injuries almost as hard as the Broncos. There's been 22 ACL tears in the NFL this year already, just through 3 weeks. So it's going to be tough. And, we've addressed a little bit throughout the show that it might be a very long winter. It might be a very long season. But you know what? At the same time, I think it's too early to call. Again, I brought up, the Titans were 2-4 to start last season, made it to the AFC Championship game. I think if we're able to survive the next couple games, I think if we're able to for sure beat the Jets, that's obviously going to be step one, and that is very doable with this Jets team. And then, start stealing 1 or 2 games, try to pull out a win that maybe we shouldn't have won until Locke gets back, and then, plug Locke in, get Philip Lindsay back and start plugging away. And we can see what we can do. This could be a very fun year in terms of being competitive when we have no right to be competitive. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting next few weeks. I think the next few weeks will determine really what happens over the course of the rest of the season. So we will have to see. Obviously, again, starts with the Jets. So we'll see what happens. It should be an interesting game, to say the least. Probably won't be very heavily viewed outside of Denver and Jets fan bases, so be sure to tune in. Be sure to tune in to our pregame show as well. We will do it that day since it is Thursday game. And again, make sure to check out the rest of our content that's coming at you throughout the week. Please feel free to share our page. Give us good ratings on our podcast, guys. Let us know what we could do better and what you like about our stuff, right? If you like something that we're doing, let us know what we can keep up. If there's something that you think we can improve on, please let us know. That way we can improve our product, because again, the fun we have in this is doing it with you guys. So again, our main show, Bourbon Broncos and No BS, Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. That is coming at you tomorrow. There will be lots to discuss. Again, I try to get to as much as I could tonight. They'll be able to get into further analysis of what they saw last game and what to look forward to for this next game. Again, we got podcasts coming at you, post-game podcast, pre-game podcast. So be sure to follow us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, whatever you get your podcast on. Again, thanks for joining us. We are sponsored tonight by Centennial State Insurance Agency. Please give them a call for all of your insurance needs. Unfortunately, 0-3, guys. It's tough, I know. And very sadly, because of another loss, I have yet to give out this season's first Mile High salute. So look for that for hopefully next week if we are able to manage to beat the Jets. Again, hang tight, hang tough. It's going to be an interesting next few weeks for sure. Please keep joining in for all of our shows, posting your comments and thoughts. We love when you guys play devil's advocate or simply just let us know what you think. So in the meantime, guys, hey, Thursday night can be our first win. I think we're all very hungry for a win. So be sure to watch that game. I think the Broncos have a great chance at, again, not only beating the Jets, but hopefully being the final nail in the coffin for Gase's job. Would love for some payback after what he pulled in 2017 with that cowardly onside kick being up 33-9. So hopefully some exciting stuff to talk about next week in terms of positives and wins. So again, tune in all our shows, podcasts. You guys are great. You make this so much fun. Appreciate you all. Tune in tomorrow night. And until then, go Broncos.